All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it has been a little bit. Let's try to get into the swing of things here with a tuning video, a little bit of a dyno overview. I know these are always enjoyable. I don't want to always be just posting wiring stuff that I'm doing, but that's consuming quite a bit of my time. I have not tuned a bunch this winter. Again, just haven't had time. It's been cold and I'm getting old. But we have managed to throw this beauty on. My friend Sean owns this. He also has that long bed square body, do I want to call it, a C10. It makes 960 rear wheel. It's pretty awesome. So anyway, this right here is an E92 135, and it has been swapped, obviously. It has a L96 6-liter iron square headed, which he bought the short block, I believe, and then just bought LSA heads because they are not that expensive. And then he put an entire LSA drive and everything on it. The blower he had, it is a stock LSA 1.9, but he had Kong port it. And I believe they did what's called the quote-unquote X port. And then I think he has a Nick Williams, like a 102 millimeter drive-by-wire on there. It's running on a holley. It has a T56 Magnum in it. It has the Cobra 88 iirc swap kit in it with, I believe, what looks like drive shaft shop axles. Obviously, the spindles are going to have to get, some sort of adapted stuff there. It has a mccleod twin disc, I believe. And what else do we got? That's basically it. That's the gist of it. There's nothing really special. I do believe it has a Radium Engineering surge tank with the stock lift pump still in the gas tank, so the stock fuel pump. We put in on the dyno, Holley sent me LSA rails, and I was like, I have someone's car I can put them on. So I just stood and watched Sean do it because he had just finished putting the car together, and honestly, more hands in there would not have helped. So Sean put Holley rails and Snake Eater 850 Pro Series injectors in. He backed it in on the dyno, and we did fuel injectors and rails. We had no issues there. We got it fired up. We tuned it on, what did we do? We did a little bit of a mix, and I'll go over it in the data logs, actually would be the best way to do it. But it ended up making 770 to the tire. His stretch goal was 800, and maybe we could really push for that, but the spark plug was in a good spot. It was making good horsepower, and everything else was happy. And 770 is pretty darn close to 800 horsepower. And he said that the car actually, so one of the things I do on blower cars like this, they can be very stabby and hard to drive. So I do an exponential curve on the drive-by-wire to make it much more muted. So say 50% opening on the pedal position where your foot goes is only, 10% of movement at the actual throttle body. So doing that makes the cars very drivable and tame and not lurch master stuff that wants to kill you. You can drive it very nicely. So what's cool is it has a nearly instant 700 horsepower. I stuffed it on the dyno on the one chart there. It makes 600 foot-pounds at 2,000 RPM, and it carries that to 7,000. It is absurd the amount of average power this combination has, and he said it hooks up and drives beautifully. He says it can use pretty much all of that power, even through third gear. And what we also are going to do, what we did on the dyno, you can see the two plots. So on an LSA blower, it has a bypass valve, and it has essentially ports on it like a wastegate. And if you know how to modulate these ports with a Mac valve, you can control the amount of boost to a point. It's essentially like having wastegate and full boost. So even if you're spinning the blower quite a bit, even if you have the bypass open, it's still going to make some boost. And I think it made right around 5 PSI and 460 wheel on low. And something like that could be easily set up to run on 87 octane, being that it's a iron 6.0. On that low a boost, you could easily do 87, and you could adjust the amount of boost per gear. So say you could make that 460, 560, 660, and then, you know, the whole 760-ish by fourth gear. You could easily modulate all of that by wheel speed. So we'll break into some data logs and I'll stop windbagging about this thing. But pretty neat car to cover. Got some video of it. Go over the logs. All right, let's give this a go. It's been a while. I built a new PC here. I had to reset all of my OBS stuff. So anyway, we have the dyno plot for the first time I rolled into it. And this is a pretty neat one because what I do is I enable a virtual, what I call a virtual output. I name it safety. I make it a ground output. And when I configure it, I do things like if the duty cycle for the injectors hits 90%, just cut and boost. And if coolant temp is above 215, it'll cut and boost. And if oil pressure is below 30 psi, it will also cut and boost. Now, these numbers are relative to your setup, but for this car, that's what I put in. And I put that in first, as we are foreshadowing here. Sorry, I realize I'm on Windows where you can't see it. There's so much to do with this stuff to record it. It's ridiculous. Got to get into it. So what better time than today? So here is the log window, and you can see I had everything pretty safe, and I rolled into this thing, and it was looking great. I saw, you know, 12s, 11s, air fuels, and then it cut me off right about here. And that is because you can see duty cycle has gone over 100%. And funny enough, Sean and I hooked up everything on this car and tested everything beautifully except for remembering that there's a secondary fuel pump. And we'd never set it up. So fuel pressure dipped and closed loop was coming in to save the day, and IDC went too high and it cut it off. And what's cool is I attached that to, let's turn it on, logs. I attached this to switch trigger safety, so 0 seconds. So if it triggers safety at all, it cuts ignition. Now the base stock embedded boost cut here only cuts ignition until you pedal back out of it, but below the threshold of error or below a certain TPS and RPM all combined. So if it cuts and you're in it, it won't re-enable until you get back out of it. What's nice about that is if you had any sort of fuel, whatever related issue, it takes the IDC and cut. So I like to do that because I give closed loop a bit of authority. I'm very comfortable with it. I don't mind saying that. So if you never know what's going to happen here, you can do all sorts of air fuel safeties and all sorts of things. But in my opinion, just cutting it at a known duty cycle is a clear winner. So anyway, it triggered that on the first hit. The first thing we did was wire and test the pumps. And then on the second one, let me turn on you. The second one, we were able to rev it out. Imagine that. We already made 681 on this hit. And then we slowly crept up on ignition and leaning out the air fuels. As you can see, we went up and up and up. And we danced around that area for a little. And then at the end, I said to him, it would be really cool if we mess with a Mac solenoid to adjust your boost. And we didn't have one, and we didn't have it wired. So we just hooked it up as if it was working 100% physically. So I wanted to know the absolute low amount of boost this could run. And then once I crimp up a Mac valve setup, he can use that. So let's get rid of everything. And I'll show you these two. Here's these two. Where's the winner? Well, that's like the, yeah. So we were trading back and forth here for peak horsepowers. But this is the approximately 5 PSI. Let's take a look. You know what? We got like information right here in front of us. So let's open up. No, I don't want to compare one. I just want to open. And then we did ice downs and everything. It has a big ice box, but in my opinion, for the ethanol cars, the ice makes nearly no power difference at all. The ice, if you look at these tests, this thing was like around 100 degrees after a pull. Like 80 to 100. It had like a 20-degree rise. Yeah, 106 at 770 rear wheel. We can see up here it was rolling over a little bit. It was pulling a little bit of fuel out. We're single digits most of the way. This thing I'm shooting for a 12.2. Look, fuel pressure is actually stable now. And this has SEP 850s and on roughly 53% flex, 17 pounds of boost, around 7,000 RPM, 77% duty cycle. So even if he puts in 68 to 78%, he should still just have enough injector. We will see when we get there, but otherwise, watering it down a tiny bit won't hurt anybody at all. Other than that, looking pretty phenomenal. This is a really cool car, so I thought it'd be a neat one. Yeah, try and disconnect it and then bypass the 5 to the top, just trying the 2 different ports. I had it backwards at first. Sean was like, are you sure? And I said, I'll probably be wrong. And then we did it and I was wrong and we swapped it around the other way. But here, 5 pounds. So here, right on the, am I wide open yet? I'm wide open right here. 3.5 pounds at 2,500. And then 6,700 is 5 PSI. And then what does that translate to when you have all of it? Let's take a look here. 17 pounds. 77% duty. Yeah. So right around 17 there. Where's wide open? Right there. 9 pounds at 2,500. So yeah, pretty cool. Very neat to see this combo, and to know he told me it drives incredible, and all the above. So really cool car. Obviously it's a part because he wanted to get it tuned before buttoning up and hiding everything under all the German cladding. So let me know if you have any questions about this. I think that this car, I don't know if he'll want to do it necessarily. I think he said okay. It would be neat to run the solenoid and tune it on 87 and see what it makes on 87, just for no reason at all, just to do it. And then again, put it back on the roller with extremely high content just to make sure it has injector, but he can also do that on the street. So I know you guys like these videos. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. Trying to make some videos again. It's been a little bit, I believe, but got to start doing them to do them. Okay, bye.